Welcome to the Chicago Report. I'm Brett Bagansky. It's my last night filling in for the vacationing Paris Schutz, who's going to be back on Monday. We all can't wait. But, you know, all eyes are going to be on Chicago today as the late Reverend Jesse Jackson is laid to rest. Chicagoans, political leaders, and even former presidents came together at House of Hope to celebrate the civil rights icon. He died last month at the age of 84, and Jesse Jackson had been battling a rare neurological disorder. So today's public service was dubbed the People's Celebration, which honored Jackson's legacy and contributions. Former presidents Barack Obama, Joe Biden, and Bill Clinton were all there to honor and share stories about Jackson. Governor J.B. Pritzker spoke to the crowd. Here's what he had to say.
Here in Chicago, he was our neighbor. He was our friend. We were so proud. We are so proud. Here, his message of hope was one he offered in a friendly smile to the child playing in front of their home, or the tap on the shoulder for the young man looking for just a little bit of encouragement. He taught us to expand our ambitions and dare to imagine a better world. And while we know that we shared him with the whole world, Reverend Jackson belonged to Chicago. And Chicago belonged to him.
And service started at 11 a.m. and wrapped up at 4:30 this afternoon. And tomorrow is the private homegoing celebration, which is going to be streaming live at 10 a.m. And we have some new information tonight about the conflict in Iran. President Donald Trump is issuing an ultimatum to Iran. No deal, except an unconditional surrender. So the president laid out his terms for the war on Truth Social, saying the only deal for Iran is to surrender. And it comes as Iran launched a new wave of attacks on neighboring countries hosting American forces with the help of Russian intelligence. So the State Department says nearly 24,000 American citizens got back to the United States safely since the military operation began. And this impacts the price of oil, which jumped to more than $90 a barrel. That is the highest it's been in 2 years. U.S. gas prices also went up today, with the average price here in the United States reaching $3.32 a gallon. Well, besides Iran, the other big story of the day is jobs, or lack thereof. The new jobs report came out today that said the U.S. lost 92,000 jobs in the month of February. So that falls short of economists' expected gain of about 50,000 jobs. The unemployment rate went up from 4.3% in January to 4.4% this past February. And affordability continues to be an issue for millions of Americans, especially ones who are struggling. It is one of the topics that is on the ballot in the November elections. And right here in Illinois and Chicago, many are looking for solutions on how to bring down your property taxes. So we are here now with former state senator and former Illinois Senate President John Colleton. John, thank you so much for being here today.
Brett, thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be back.
You have a wide variety of knowledge about how we got here, and I know you've been kind of battling some people who are looking for some property tax relief. So kind of explain how we got here.
Yeah. Well, one of the big problems we have in the state government is that we don't treat Chicago the same way we treat the rest of the state. The rest of the state, their teachers, their pension funds are fully funded by the state. In Chicago, for historical purposes, because the Chicago Teachers Pension Fund was started in 1896, they don't get the full amount of money. The difference is about $550 million a year, and guess what? We have a separate property tax to make sure the teachers get their pension fund, but we're paying that property tax. It shouldn't be paid by us. It should be paid by the state of Illinois, and it should be coming to the taxpayers in Chicago. And since the teachers are getting their money because of those property taxes, if the state gave them that money, those property taxes could be reduced, or they could go to the city. Remember, the city of Chicago had a budget crisis that they were fighting on over this year. So either way, it's not fair that we're paying for other people's pensions and not getting our fair share ourselves.
And it's amazing for so many people to find out that when they're paying, if they live in Chicago, they're kind of getting double dinged on this, both Chicago and paying for the rest of the school districts across the state of Illinois.
We're totally doing it. So the way you solve this problem, it's not easy to go to Springfield and say, you know, hey, legislators, let's give Chicago $550 million.
Yes.
You got to pass a bill. So the idea that I had was to take these two pension funds and merge them. If you merge them, it's actually a stronger, both, the one fund is stronger than the two by themselves. And when you do that, it's harder for the legislators outside Chicago to vote against it. And then you would actually get, the state would have to come up with the money, but you'd get this extra $550 million. Now, the people that we have to convince to do that are the teachers' unions, because for some reason they don't want to merge the pension systems. They want to keep their own here. But the money is money that would go to Chicagoans, and we're really owed that money.
And is it because they want control over how the investments are running, or is it because they feel like the fund could be diluted if they go to the state system?
All I know is the teachers union head said that they like their governance. But in the meantime, we're not getting our fair share of money. And the property taxes are the thing that people don't like to pay the most. When the people are paying taxes, the property taxes are driving them crazy. A lot of people don't know the schools are the ones that most of the property taxes go to schools. People like schools. They want them to be run properly, but they want it to be fair. And this is not a fair system at all.
And another thing that we heard about property tax fairness, we were speaking to a man who has had a business in Six Corners since the late 1970s, and he runs a newsstand. And he was telling me about how he gets the property taxes on his personal property, but then his commercial property is it's hiked at a higher percent on the commercial side. So he almost feels like there needs to be some sort of solution here when it comes to property tax fairness there.
And that can all be done within the government. You can collect the same amount of money, but you can classify property differently. That's what the assessor is supposed to do, of course, to analyze and see how much things are worth. That's got to be done. You have a right to appeal that if that's not the case. But the system itself of property taxes is something that people just don't understand. They don't like paying it. When they realize that it's important for government, fine, you got to collect it. But the income tax, which is what we have in Illinois, that's a much fairer tax, quite frankly. And that's the money that we need to get to supplement the taxes that we're unfairly paying here in Chicago.
Especially because it came out that there were some parts of the city, specifically the west side and the south side, that were given higher property taxes, or at least the percentage was much higher as opposed to some of the more wealthier neighborhoods.
Brett, one thing that's obvious, if we had more building going on downtown Chicago, there's not too many cranes up these days. If we had more people coming in and building in Chicago, there'd be higher not higher taxes, there'd actually be lower taxes for the neighborhoods, because the downtown would be providing more of the property tax dollar.
There's also, you mentioned something that's very important, and given my experience in downstate Illinois, you had been a legislator for many years.
I was all over the state.
You were all over the state. There is a real resentment with the rest of the state. Once you get out of the Chicagoland area, for anybody who hasn't left the city of Chicago or the Chicagoland area, there is a real resentment from many downstate, kind of blaming Chicago for a lot of the financial mess that it's in. It seems like lawmakers in downstate Illinois would have to also get on board if there were the pensions merged.
That's what I did when I was a Senate president. I worked with the Republicans and Democrats on many, many projects. I'm really proud of that. That's what we have to do with this bill here. We have to get Chicago its fair share by working with the downstaters. And there could be some trade-offs. We can help them with some things too as well. It's what you got to do is talk to people and work.
And what do you think those trade-offs could be? Let's say the two funds would merge. What would be the other alternative?
There's some people downstate that would like to have some state money going to private schools, money that you can give for scholarships to Jewish schools or Catholic schools. That's something which we had for a while. Those people would say, if you give us that, then maybe we can merge these two pension systems. But again, the teachers union has to agree to something like that, and they've been fighting that. So you have to have some compromise. I would say if the Chicago Teachers Union was willing to work on this, we could get this extra money for Chicago.
Have you proposed this potential solution to the city of Chicago?
I have. I've pitched it to the city of Chicago. I went to the mayor's, the current mayor's budget director, and they liked the idea, but his political director said, well, get the teachers union to be for it. And, that's where he came from. But he's not representing the teachers union anymore. He's the mayor of the city of Chicago, and he should be getting this money by telling the teachers union, you guys got to get your act together and help us out here.
John Cullerton has a wide, vast experience dealing with property taxes here. And of course, affordability is still one of the biggest topics when it comes to the November elections. Didn't know if you had a chance to see any of the debates for Cook County Assessor's race, but what have you noticed in this race that is different from some of the past years?
You know what? For some reason, there's a lot more negative campaigning. Everybody used the word fight. They must have done some polling, and everybody's fighting. Everybody's fighting. They're going to fight for this and fight for that. It's just kind of unfortunate. Obviously, I ran in races. I ran a lot of races. It would be better if we could talk about programs that you're going to pass and things you're going to do rather than the negative things about somebody else. It gets people cynical, and some people say, well, I don't even want to vote for any of them because they're all bad. So that's kind of unfortunate.
And it got very confusing during the political attack ads and then even during the debate saying who's responsible for raising your property taxes. And they even mentioned some of the court cases where some people were able to lower their property tax bill. And you are very, very in tune with that as well.
If you look at your property tax bill in Chicago, 55% of it goes to the city of Chicago, 25% goes to the schools. So the thing I'm trying to do is get more money for the city of Chicago from Springfield, and then that property tax can go down. That's really, big picture, a better way to do it.
Yeah, because I mean, not everybody has the means to hire a law firm and fight for their property taxes.
That's
to go
true
down.
too. And so, and you can if you think you were overassessed and that sort of thing. But the main thing is, it's you got to have money for government. It's just that it's got to be collected in a fair way.
A potential solution from former Illinois Senate President John Cullerton. John, thank you so much.
Nice to be back.
Hey,
nice to be back here at Fox News.
Hey, you're welcome anytime. All right, when we come back, we're going to speak to a local Jewish leader calling for Mayor Brandon Johnson to do more to fight anti-Semitism in the city. Jewish leaders want Mayor Brandon Johnson to do more to make Chicago's Jewish community feel safe. And this Monday, the American Defamation League asked the mayor to adopt a list of recommendations, including an anti-Semitism task force. And their senior regional director, Rebecca Weininger, is joining us now to break down the group's demands. So, all right, Rebecca, so there was a press conference on Monday, and there are some demands, what prompted it. We want to know what you are asking Mayor Johnson and his administration to do.
Hi, thanks for having me tonight. We're asking the mayor to do exactly what his own commission, the City of Chicago Commission on Human Relations, came out with a report. It was initially published or finished in November after hearings were held in September last year, after the commission came out with its hate crimes report in July that documented a 58% rise in hate crimes against Jews. The version of the report that was published in November created a floor for the mayor to build an executive strategy to fight anti-Semitism in the city of Chicago. We are asking no more than for the mayor to do what his own commission has recommended in its own report.
And Rebecca, I feel like the last few years we have seen more attacks on the Jewish community here. From your research and your organization's research, is this just trending upward and with really no end in sight?
That's right. And obviously that's problematic and it's happening for a few reasons. The most important of which is that there is a normalization of violence against Jews, of inflammatory rhetoric against Jews that is making it okay and even acceptable to commit violence against Jews themselves and against our places of worship and against the places where we gather and even on college campuses. And as that normalization has increased in people's echo chambers and in people's algorithms online, it is becoming more and more normal and accepted and in some places encouraged to commit violence against Jews. We have seen this upward trend, particularly since October 7th, 2023, and it has not stymied yet. And the rate at which Jews are being excluded in online spaces and healthcare spaces. Just 2 weeks ago, there were Jews in a Lincoln Park cafe that were doing nothing more than meeting together, and they were forced out of the cafe merely for publicly being Jewish. And as we see this as acceptable behavior, as we see this as behavior that that less and less people are commenting on and pushing back against, we are particularly concerned that there is silence from the mayor of the great city of Chicago, despite these numbers and despite the risk that that silence puts all of us in the longer it goes on.
And were there other events or other people who may have said some things? You mentioned the war, an attack in Israel, and everything that's happened in the Middle East. Was there anything else that you think may have contributed or threw fuel on the fire with this?
Every time that there is anything to do with Israel that's in the news, there is a spike in anti-Semitism against Jews at home. This is a trend that we see every single time that Israel is in the news, and a pattern of holding Jews responsible here in America for the decisions of the government of Israel. As you just put on your screen, there was the assassination of 2 people outside of a Jewish museum in DC. There have been fire bombings of Jews walking to keep attention on when there were hostages in Gaza. There have been attempted murder in West Rogers Park of Eitan Bleichmans merely walking down the street going to synagogue. So anytime that there is a mention of Israel, anytime that there seems to be criticism, real and valid criticism of the decisions of the Israeli government, then spikes in anti-Semitism happen at home. And it becomes incredibly even more dangerous for Jews on the streets of Chicago. So for instance, since the beginning of the military action in Iran, the 3 days of Purim, which is a joyful holiday for Jews, we had to increase security at every single one of our synagogues, every single place where we gather, merely so that Jewish people could gather without the risk of being harassed, or worse, the risk of being shot while we're gathering together to celebrate our holidays.
And that is a real concern. Some of my Jewish friends were telling me that it's even tough to date, and he was thinking about moving out of Chicago, which is just such a horrible thing to do. And with this kind of rhetoric and, coming up on almost 100 years in an awful, awful world conflict here, do you almost see history repeating itself in a lot of respects?
Well, we know what happens. We know what happens when this kind of normalized violence stays at these levels. First of all, we know that rhetoric against Jews turns into violence against Jews, that there is a causation, a correlation between the words that we use and the violence that we experience. We also know that this kind of violence and this kind of marginalization doesn't stop with Jews. This kind of violence, this kind of rhetoric spreads from Jews to other marginalized communities. Caring about the normalization of violence against Jews is to care about the normalization of violence against other marginalized communities. What we're experiencing right now is kids on college campuses putting away all of the identifiers that make them Jewish, not wearing their Jewish stars, not wearing their hamsas, taking off their kippot and changing them out for baseball hats so that they aren't recognizable as Jews. And when we've reached that level of fear in the streets, on college campuses, on buses, and you say even in dating, then we know that there's something seriously wrong with the way that Jews feel about being Jewish on the streets of Chicago. Nobody should tolerate that kind of discomfort, that's kind of level of failure of safety towards anyone for being who they are, least of all in this amazing city of Chicago. And so what we're asking is for the mayor, the elected leader of this city, to step forward in a meaningful way and to adopt in full the recommendations of his commission so that he can start an open line of communication with his Jewish constituents to understand our lived experience right now and to get meaningful recommendations about policy changes that he can make right now to first make Jews feel safe and second to make us actually safe.
Well, Rebecca, I hope you will check back in with us because we want to know what that communication is going to be like if you end up having a meeting with Mayor Brandon Johnson and his administration to find out if they plan on taking action about this and if they're going to meet your demands. So, Rebecca Weininger, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful weekend. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you too. Thank you so much. You're always welcome here. All right, when we come back, we are previewing a rally that is going to be taking over Federal Plaza tomorrow. So we want to tell you about a rally happening right here in our backyard tomorrow. A national group called Stand Up for Science will protest what they call the Trump administration's erosion of established climate and health science. So it starts at 1 o'clock at Federal Plaza. CEO Colette Delawala joins us now to tell us more about what they're fighting for. Colette, thanks for being here. What is the big reason why you're doing this?
We're doing this because we're seeing a really concerted effort to push back against, climate change. We're seeing this in health science. We're seeing this in vaccine science from the Trump administration. And we're coming together as professionals in science, medicine, education, and pro-science members of the public to say, no, that's not how this is going to go down. If we can help it, we're standing up for science.
So what's been the history of science rallies in the city of Chicago? Because it seems like this wasn't a thing until the last 15 years or so. Maybe you feel differently about it, Colette.
No, I think that's about right. Of course, in 2017, there was the broad mobilization of March for Science. And then we started back up again with Stand Up for Science, not related, but of course, a very similar spirit and heart to our mission last year on March 7th. And we're back again this year. Last year, it was very much a canary in the coal mines moment, right? Warning the public, saying, hey, we're not headed down a good path here. This isn't going to end well. And essentially everything that we warned about has happened in the last year. And so now we're really getting loud. We're standing up again. And we're just saying, like, this is not going to happen on our watch.
How has this impacted education in a detrimental way, considering that, we're learning about science is as young as you are when you start school, and it seems like there is this push now to be anti-science, depending on where you're located in the country.
Sure. I do think that there is, it's a detriment for children to not learn how to think critically. And that's what science is. Science is learning how to ask questions in a way where you get information and then you integrate that information into, your worldview. But there's also this other more personal piece of it, right? I get weekly emails from middle and high school students asking me if they should go into STEM careers. And I want to tell them yes. And under, any other administration, I'd be saying, yes, absolutely, you should do that. But we don't have the stability that we used to have in science across the nation with regard to careers and pathways for individuals. And so it's a really hard question to answer right now. And, as a scientist and as a young person, that really breaks my heart.
Well, knowing all those factors, because you're getting all those calls and emails, how do you expect, or what do you expect the turnout to be tomorrow for this rally?
I mean, Chicago is a seat of science. It's a seat of education in the United States, and so I really hope that we get a big turnout. Of course, that will depend a little on weather. It'll depend on people's schedules. But if you are watching this, if you care about science, if you care about health, if you care about getting a weather alert on your phone when there's a blizzard about to hit your city, I hope that you'll make it out tomorrow at Federal Plaza at 1 p.m.
How do you feel about, there was this report that said, I believe it was from your organization, that said that 10,000 scientists have been purged from federal agencies, and science was supposed to be one of those topics that's supposed to be left out of the political sphere, but it's certainly been politicized in a lot of different respects. And how has that really impacted just knowledge and education?
Yeah, well, the federal government has begun banning words like women, like Black, LGBTQ. At risk, vulnerable, climate is a banned word from the government. And that is not a sign of a society heading in a more enlightened and free direction. Anytime you start telling people that are, in independent centers of thought, whether it's science or it's media, what they can and cannot say, it's not a good direction. And, one of those things about the 10,000 PhD level scientists that were purged from the federal government, that was over 100,000 years of knowledge across that group of people who were purged. And that's just now gone from our institutions. That doesn't make our water safer to drink. It doesn't make us healthier, and it doesn't make our air cleaner.
All right, Colette, thank you so much for being here for us. All right, that does it for the Chicago Report tonight. Pleasure filling in for Paris. I'll be back, as always. All the news you need to know is at fox32chicago.com. See you.